Hello everybody and happy Friday. It is time for my Friday read selection, and today we are talking about Scourge of the Fallen. This is the second book in the Fallen trilogy by W.M. Martin, and it was awesome. All right, so book one is Shadow of Okeaous. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct, but I did review this a while back, so you can go ahead and check out my blog or check out my YouTube videos and get the review on this one, as well as a link to purchase it if you have not done so already. You definitely need to pick it up. Okay, so Scourge of the Fallen, book two. This is a fantasy book, so if you enjoy fantasy, definitely pick up this series. Book three is not yet out, but I will definitely be on the lookout. Start with the Amazon description. Following the events of Shadow of Okeaous, the fallen have been scattered. Whispers of the Hordes searching for something around many of the havens on Earth has reached the ears of the Guardians. Meanwhile, the students of the Kindred Academy have been striving to further their knowledge of the incredible power lying dormant within themselves. With the aid of their clan leaders and an odd new instructor, the dubious young guardians in training will learn to harness exciting and dangerous new abilities. The worlds of the kindred, no longer separated by the veil, are equally unaware of an ancient darkness which has been steadily rising to drown out the light of the living, both guardian and fallen alike. All right, so this is book two in the Fallen series. Again, book one is Shadow of Okeaous, and book two is Scourge of the Fallen. Book three is not yet out. So let's start with the critical points. Writing. I gave this book a 4-star in writing. Scourge of the Fallen is a self-published fantasy novel. I've said it before, fantasy is definitely not my favorite genre. It probably isn't even in my top 3 favorite genres. However, I read book one and was pleasantly surprised that I actually really enjoyed it. So that meant I was going to have to read the next book, and of course the third book in the series when it does come out. Martin, our author, has a very energetic writing style. His books are filled with action and adventure, and they leave you almost longing for peaceful, quiet moments. And that isn't to say that I didn't enjoy the book, but I did long for just a little bit of that quiet time in the book. I did enjoy this book very much. It's a page turner with a lot going on and a lot of characters to keep track of and to follow their story arcs. One thing I really like about Martin's writing is that he isn't afraid to kill off his characters. Yes, some of the main characters in this book or in this series die, and I'm not going to tell you who, and I'm not going to tell you how, because I think you should read the book to find that out. But be prepared. You will lose some of the characters you care about. I'm not sure how this book is being marketed, but after reading it, I would say that it's good for middle grade through young adult readers. However, there are a number of times when use of words is kind of obscure. There's a use of obscure words or obscure ways to use words. For example, one would be the word purchase. And this is how it's used. So this is a quote from the book. Maggie could not get her swords out in front of herself enough to slice or to stab the large and imposing fallen. So she kicked at him as hard as she could, but like her sword strike, her attack failed to find purchase. So this is not your typical use of the word purchase. Then there were a number of different references throughout this book as well as throughout the first book that I think some of our younger readers may have difficulty understanding the references. Now, the meanings are pretty evident in the context of the story, but not always clear just by, utilizing their typical meaning of the word. So I think that younger readers may have a little bit of a problem with that, but there is no content in the books that I don't think couldn't be read by middle school grade. All right, now let's talk about the story. I did give this one a 4-star for story as well. Scourge of the Fallen is, again, the second book in Martin's The Fallen series, and follows pretty closely behind where book 1 left off. So in book 1, our main characters were first-year students at the academy. In book 2, they are second-year students in the academy. They've already gone through a lot and have had so many battles and faced so many trials throughout book 1 and book 2. And I think that he gives you a lot to take in. He gives us battle after battle after battle, and just when the reader thinks there is hope, thinks that there is something to cling to, thinks that something good is going to happen, he throws another wrench in the story. He throws another conflict in there for the characters to have to deal with. And I thought that was pretty good because he's keeping you on the edge of your seat the entire time going, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? All right, now let's talk about characters. I gave characters a 4-star review as well. The reader is given numerous characters to follow, and maybe it's a little bit too many. I did have a little bit of a hard time at times. There are so many storylines to follow and so many different characters to keep up with that I found myself losing track at times of who's who and what happened to which ones. Not to mention the fact that many of the characters and many of the locations as well have names that are very difficult to pronounce, which makes them a bit harder to remember and a bit harder to relate to. I have the same issue when I'm reading large epics like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. Until you're really deep into it and you know the characters by heart, it can be a little bit hard to understand or a little bit hard to keep track of who's who. Okay, so I only had 2 character-related issues with this story. The first was with Henry. He's a human, and he's introduced in chapter 9, I believe, and there was a lack of character development for Henry and nothing that really allowed the reader to connect with him, much less care for him or what happens to him. So when he dies, we were left with this uneasy feeling of just not really caring about that. It didn't seem to me that Henry served much of a purpose within the story. He didn't propel the story forward in any way that couldn't have been done by editing him out and just changing a little bit throughout the story. It wouldn't have affected the timeline or the final storyline a negative way or a positive way if he was taken out of it. All right, and the second character issue I had was Martin's need to weaken our lead character. So Maggie is our lead character in book 1, and Maggie is also the lead character throughout most of book 2. But instead of Maggie being the hero at the end of the story, which is what I think the series calls for or guides us to believing is going to happen, another character, one which we love to hate or hate to love or both at the same time, that other character steps up and basically becomes the hero of the story. And I like Lucy, I do, but it didn't feel very natural to me that she would be the prominent character in the end, that she would be in that position at the end. So it bothered me just a little bit, but maybe that's just my sense of needing that happy ending. Just my opinion, I guess. Maybe you would love that. So I would love to know if you read this book or if you're going to read this book, I would love to know what you think of that twist. Okay, so click below or click in the blog post, which there will be a link below in the description, to get your copy of this book as well as your copy of the first book so that you can read those. Now the appearance, I love the cover. It is great. It's very eye-catchy. It's very inviting. It was designed by the same person as book 1. You can see that they look very good together. Maybe I should do it this way so you see them in order. There you go, book 1 and book 2. I love them. I think that she did a great job making them cohesive, making them feel the same, and inspiring fantasy readers to want to go ahead and get them and read them. All right, so I do have a favorite quote in here. It is by Klaus, okay. He says, "That's it, we're all going to die. I knew it, we're going to die. Thank you, Kylie, for delivering me to my death. Would anyone else like to say thank you to Kylie before we die?" I think the reason I like this is because it's so lighthearted in a moment of such intense, almost fear and definitely anxiety throughout this part. There's a lot going on. It's a battle. And he brings in this lighthearted, kind of spirited jab at Kylie. So I really liked that. All right, so if you enjoyed this video, if you want to get alerted every time I post a video, go ahead and click on that little bell below. Make sure you like and subscribe, like this video and subscribe to this channel, but make sure above anything else, support an indie author today and pick up your copy of Scourge of the Fallen because it's definitely worth the read. All right, everybody, that is my Friday read selection for today. Until next time, happy reading.